Think Vikings survived winter because they were simply tougher than everyone else? That idea is comforting. It's also wrong. Because cold does not care how brave you are. In northern winters, exposure kills quietly. It drains energy. It slows thinking. And once your body starts losing heat faster than it can produce it, strength becomes irrelevant. So here is the first question you need to hold on to. If Vikings didn't rely on roaring fireplaces the way we imagine, how did they actually stay alive? The answer is not one trick, and it's not what movies show you. In fact, if you dropped a modern person, with modern clothes, into a Viking winter without understanding their system, they would likely fail within days. Because Viking warmth was not about fire. It was about design. Design in how they dressed. Design in how they built. Design in how they moved, ate, slept, and even how they gathered together. And the most surprising part? Some of their methods look uncomfortable. Some look counterintuitive. And at least one seems like it should make you colder, yet it does the opposite. So as you watch, keep asking yourself this. Which of these techniques could you survive without? And which would quietly kill you if you ignored it? Because what kept Vikings warm was not a single invention, but a chain. Break one link and winter wins. Now imagine this scene. A longhouse at night. No roaring hearth in every room. No central heating. Outside, wind cuts across open land. Inside, people sleep, eat, and work, not in silence, but in coordination. Every choice they make reduces heat loss. Every mistake is felt immediately. And here's the loop I want you to keep in mind as we go forward. Why did Viking survival depend more on layers and layout than on fire itself? We'll answer that, but not yet. Before we begin, if you enjoy deep dive history, practical survival knowledge, and the hidden systems that made ancient life possible, subscribe to the channel. It helps more people discover this kind of real, evidence-based history. And if you find yourself thinking, I never knew that, like and share the video. That tells YouTube to keep recommending stories like this. Now let's start with the first layer of Viking survival. Quite literally. Because when archaeologists dig into graves and bogs, they don't find one heroic coat. They find a system. And once you understand that system, the Viking winter stops looking brutal and starts looking engineered. Think Vikings just shrugged off winter because they were tough? Think again. The image of bare-chested raiders stomping through snow is a cinematic shorthand, not a survival manual. Real life in the north demanded systems. Clever combinations of clothing, architecture, food, movement, and communal care that turned icy landscapes into places people could live in year after year. In this video, we'll walk through 10 unexpected ways Vikings kept warm in harsh winters. Practical, evidence-based techniques that together made cold tolerable. If you love deep dive history, subscribe for more. First, clothing as engineered insulation. When archaeologists pull fragments of textile from bogs and graves, they don't find a single heroic coat. They find layers. Reconstructions based on woven fragments and textile impressions suggest Vikings typically used a linen or woolen inner garment next to the skin, topped by multiple wool tunics, cloaks, and, where available, fur. Linen made a surprisingly effective base layer. It wicks moisture away from the skin and dries faster than many people expect. Wool, however, was the workhorse. Its fibers trap countless tiny air pockets. Air is what actually resists heat loss. The wool itself, and especially unwashed wool rich in lanolin, repels moisture to an extent. Not waterproof like modern gear, but enough to keep the outer layers from soaking and losing insulation. Think of their clothes as a simple thermal sandwich. The inner layer keeps the skin dry. The middle layers trap still air and slow down heat loss. Outer cloaks and capes protect against wind and rain. Hats, often made from wool or fur, were crucial because the head is an efficient radiator of body heat. Socks and wrapped footwear were layered too. A linen sock next to the skin, a thicker wool sock over it, then leather or rawhide boots insulated with grass, straw or more wool. Archaeological finds of small leather shoes and bone toggles, combined with experimental reconstructions, suggest that these combinations could make a huge difference in perceived warmth. Importantly, layering permitted flexibility. People could shed a tunic while working by the fire, or add one for a long night outdoors. From a thermodynamic point of view, the key was keeping skin dry and trapping air. Moist skin saps heat quickly. Trapped air between layers slows conductive heat loss. Reconstructions and practical experiments by living history groups have shown that 3 to 5 effective layers of wool and linen, with a dry outer layer, can keep someone considerably warmer than a single thick garment would. Modern takeaway: in cold, keep a dry base layer, trap air with multiple layers, and protect the head and extremities. Second, the longhouse as a piece of thermal engineering. A Viking longhouse or longhome was not merely a dwelling. It functioned as a low-tech thermal battery. Its long, narrow shape, timber post framing, and walls of wattle and daub or turf created thick, insulating barriers. Turf in particular, sod and earth stacked around a timber frame, added mass that moderated temperature swings. The roofs, often thatched or covered with turf, acted like giant insulating blankets. That thatch and turf wasn't just about rain. It kept radiant heat from escaping quickly and provided an additional air trap. Inside, the architecture created microclimates. Sleeping platforms were raised off the damp, cold floor. Straw or rushes on the floor added a light, insulating layer between occupants and the ground. Curtains or hangings around sleeping benches formed enclosed sleeping boxes that held body heat. Smoke from a central hearth tended to cling to the roof timbers and thatch for a while before escaping through a smoke hole or breath of wind, warming the structure itself. Experimental reconstructions show interiors stayed significantly warmer than the outside air, at least near the center of the house. Archaeological evidence, post holes delineating longhouse shapes, charred timbers, preserved turf walls and floor deposits, coupled with experimental archaeology at reconstructed farms, indicate that thoughtful layout and materials could create zones of comfort even when outside temperatures were uninviting. Small details mattered. A well-built door, a windbreak of piled turf, and compacted entryways reduced drafts. The longhouse was communal, not just socially but thermally. More occupants meant more internal heat. Put simply, the building was designed to conserve whatever heat was produced inside, whether by fire, bodies, or even stored heat in the thick walls and stones. Modern takeaway: insulating floors, creating small enclosed sleeping spaces, and using thermal mass can make a shelter feel much warmer. Third, the central hearth as the home's battery. At the heart of nearly every dwelling was a hearth, but it did more than provide flame for cooking. It was a carefully tended heat source and a mechanism for distributing warmth. Many longhouses had a central pit or stone-lined hearth. Some reconstructions highlight the use of dense stones, such as soapstone where available, placed in the hearth and heated to high temperatures. Soapstone and similar dense rocks store heat and release it slowly, acting like a primitive radiator. Archaeological hearth finds, along with ethnographic parallels and experimental reconstructions, suggest that carefully selected and arranged stones, combined with continuous or at least regular fire tending, could maintain a steady background warmth. Keeping such a hearth required labor and knowledge. Someone was responsible for stoking it, for knowing which fuels burned hot and long, peat and coal where present, seasoned hardwood logs elsewhere, and for managing smoke and ventilation so the house stayed breathable. The hearth's glow also served non-thermal purposes, lighting, cooking, drying garments and fish, and providing a social focus for conversation and work. In many communities, the duty of tending the fire was a social role, often rotating among households or members. Evidence suggests this work was critical. A hearth left to die on a cold night could mean a long, uncomfortable freeze for the household. Technically, the hearth turned combustible energy into convective and radiant heat. The stones turned intermittent fire into more continuous radiative warmth. Reconstructions show a hearth with good stone mass could keep an area near the center of a longhouse substantially warmer for hours after the flame had diminished. Modern takeaway: use thermal mass where possible and tend your stove or fire for sustained warmth. Fourth, hot stones, rocks as portable radiators. Across Arctic and subarctic cultures, and well attested in Northern Europe, people heated stones in a fire, then used them in a variety of ways once hot. Viking households made practical use of this simple principle. Heated stones, wrapped in cloth or placed inside wooden or leather boxes, were slid into beds to warm sleeping surfaces. Smaller stones were used as foot warmers. Hot stones could also be used medicinally, pressed to stiff joints, or used to create steam in a small sauna-like chamber. Archaeological contexts often show cracked or spalled stones near hearths and in fire pits, suggesting repeated thermal shock from heating and cooling. The technique is deceptively straightforward, but required knowledge. Pick dense, heat-retaining stones that resist shattering and crack control. Avoid stones from water-worn sources without testing, because trapped moisture can make rocks explode when heated. In Viking contexts, soapstone and certain igneous rocks were prized for their heat retention. When wrapped and placed under bedding or in a footbox, a heated stone could radiate usable heat for hours, gently raising the temperature of a confined space. Reconstructions and ethnographic accounts from later Scandinavian sauna traditions illustrate similar uses. The sensory image is intimate. The soft hiss when a hot stone meets snow-covered water, the hush in a bed warmed by a stone tucked at the foot. Modern takeaway: controlled use of heated stones can warm a sleeping area without keeping a fire alight, but technique and caution matter. Uncontrolled use can be dangerous. Fifth, communal sleeping and bed engineering. Viking longhouses were social spaces, and sleep arrangements reflected that. Benches and platforms lined one or both sides of the building. These raised beds were arranged to make best use of the warmer central air, while keeping occupants off the cold earth. Archaeological floor plans and the dimensions of recovered buildings suggest sleeping platforms often ran along the walls, sometimes divided by curtains or simple partitions. These curtains, along with layered furs and straw mattresses, created small enclosed sleeping spaces, microclimates in which heat from bodies and a nearby hearth was trapped. Sleeping close together wasn't merely cultural, it was thermodynamic. Bodies radiate heat. In a confined space with insulating materials, that heat adds up. Experimental reconstructions demonstrate how several occupants in an enclosed sleeping area maintain a higher temperature than a single person in an exposed bed. Practical sleeping order mattered too. In many traditional cultures, the most vulnerable, infants and the elderly, were placed in the warmest positions, often central and flanked by others. This was a system of social care as much as engineering. Bed construction used available materials, straw or hay beneath, layered hides and furs above, and sometimes curtains or wooden screens to reduce air exchange. These practices show how social organization, family structure, cooperation, duty to care directly supported survival in cold months. Modern takeaway: sharing warmth with others and insulating sleeping areas are powerful ways to stay warm when shelter and fuel are limited. Sixth, diet as metabolic heat. Food was fuel in the most literal sense. Archaeological deposits, bone assemblages, fish remains, storage pits and smokehouse residues show a winter diet concentrated on high-calorie, high-fat foods, preserved fish and meat, butter and cream where dairy animals were present, cured and smoked fish, and hearty stews thick with animal fat. Fat is energy-dense. Metabolizing it releases heat, and in cold months, a higher caloric intake helps maintain body temperature and energy for daily labor. Reconstructions of winter provisioning show communities stored large quantities of preserved foods to last through long winters when hunting and fishing were more difficult. What they ate was not mere indulgence, it was adaptation. Hot soups and stews provided immediate warmth and hydration. Fatty foods provided lasting calories. Cod liver oil, fish oil, and rendered animal fats were not only food, but sources of portable energy and sometimes tradable commodities. Evidence from isotope analyses and faunal remains suggests diets varied regionally. Island communities relied more on marine resources, inland farms on cattle and dairy. But the emphasis on energy-dense winter foods is consistent. It's worth noting that digestion itself generates heat, a process called diet-induced thermogenesis. While archaeological evidence does not give exact metabolic figures, experimental reconstructions and ethnographic parallels indicate that a calorie-rich winter diet helped people stay active and warm. Modern takeaway: in cold conditions, prioritize compact, energy-dense calories and warm, hydrating meals. 7th, communal bathing and steam practices, the ancestor of the sauna. Scandinavia's later sauna traditions have deep roots, and evidence suggests that heated stone steam rooms or similar heat and cold cycles were practiced in various northern communities. Heated stones brought into a small enclosed space to produce steam, followed by brief exposure to snow or cold water, is a pattern that appears in ethnographic records and in scattered archaeological features interpreted as sweat lodges or bathing rooms. Though the precise layout and frequency likely varied regionally and over time, the principle is consistent. Contrast therapy raises circulation, helps clean and dry the body, and offers social and perhaps ritual functions. In colder climates, a weekly or semi-regular steam session also had practical benefits. Wet clothes could be dried more effectively, skin infections treated by heat and cleaning, and the communal ritual reinforced social bonds. Reconstructions and historical accounts from later centuries suggest these spaces required a supply of heated stones, a small enclosed chamber, and a water source for flashing steam. Modern research on contrast therapy notes potential circulatory benefits. Not a cure-all, but plausibly helpful for recovery after exertion. Archaeologically, the evidence is patchy, but suggestive. Some sites show features consistent with heated chambers and sequences of use that echo later sauna practices. 8th, constant activity, movement as heat. The cold is easiest to endure if you're moving through it. Daily life for most people included labor, chopping wood, tending animals, mending nets, hauling peat, cutting turf, and other tasks that keep muscles engaged. In winter, those tasks shifted but did not disappear. Hunting trips required sustained effort. Food processing demanded work by the hearth. Children's games, wrestling, dancing, and training kept bodies warm. Historical and ethnographic sources point to a culture that valued activity as a means of survival and as a source of communal vitality. Movement generates metabolic heat. Beyond that, staying active prevented the dangerous drop in temperature associated with prolonged stillness, especially after sweating and then cooling. The social calendar, communal work parties, cooperative hunts, shared food preparation, was as much about economy as it was about keeping people moving and warm. Reconstructions and written accounts from later medieval Scandinavia describe routines of work and festivity that kept people physically engaged through the darker months. As you can see, these first 8 techniques build on each other. Clothing traps heat, the house conserves it, the hearth supplies it, stones and beds retain and direct it, food fuels the body, bathing and movement maintain health and circulation. Each tactic on its own helps a little. Together they create a resilient, adaptable system. But some of the most striking and frankly unexpected tricks remain. ones that transform the entire household into a heat-producing machine, and others that turn snow and ice into a highway rather than an obstacle. Those are the methods that pushed Viking survival from individual ingenuity into community-level engineering. One of the most surprising practices involves animals, not just as food or trade, but as active components of home heating. And another turns mobility into a survival strategy. These ideas complicate the romantic image of solitary warriors braving the elements. They show instead a networked intelligence where architecture, biology, and behavior combine. The next examples move from personal and household measures to system-level strategies. Biological heat pooling, fermentation and decomposition as supplemental warmth, and deliberate winter mobility that turns expenditure of energy into movement efficiency. Evidence for these practices is uneven in the archaeological record, and in some cases we rely on later ethnography or experimental reconstructions to fill gaps. Yet the patterns suggest a coherent logic worth exploring. Imagine a longhouse on a frigid morning, steam rising from a hearth, furs stacked on benches, a line of people working together to lift turf for roof repairs, children slipping on packed snow to fetch water. Outside, skis lie in rows, slender planks shaped to glide across packed snow more easily than trudging on foot. Inside, the smells of fish and marrow simmer in a pot. Everyone has had a hot bite and a labor shift already. The house is warm because it was designed to be warm, and because every person and animal within it plays a part. The methods we've covered so far explain much of that comfort. But can a building's inhabitants, or its resident animals, actually become part of the heating system in a measurable way? Experimental reconstructions and bioenergetic estimates suggest, yes, the idea is not mystical, but practical. Bodies, straw, and even fermenting manure all emit heat. We'll look at the evidence and uncertainties around that idea next, and then turn to the tools of mobility that let people exploit the environment rather than be trapped by it. Start with the animals. It's an image that jars the modern imagination. Livestock tucked under the same roof as people, not only sheltered from predators, but enlisted as living radiators. Yet archaeological traces and later ethnographic parallels make this less eccentric than it sounds. In a number of northern farmsteads, soil layers, midden deposits, and the distribution of dung and straw in house fills indicate that animals were stabled very near, and in some cases within, the domestic structure. Where winters bite hardest, keeping animals under shelter reduces losses to frost and makes nighttime feeding and care feasible. The side effect is thermal. Think of a longhouse as a shared microclimate. Bodies, human and animal, produce heat simply by burning food. A cluster of animals in a confined barn area raises the immediate air temperature and radiates warm surfaces into adjoining sleeping benches. Experimental reconstructions and simple thermal models suggest that a handful of sheltered livestock, combined with thick walls and limited ventilation, could measurably raise interior temperatures compared to an unoccupied building. That difference might be a few degrees on a cold day, but in marginal climates those degrees matter. They slow freezing of stored foods, reduce daily frost cycles on wooden tools, and make the environment far less taxing on human bodies. Archaeological evidence in some Norse settlements, especially in more Arctic outposts, supports this pattern. Animal bone assemblages, dung layers, and the arrangement of stalls point to an integrated domestic animal space rather than a strict separation between barn and house. The practice was practical on several levels. Animals sheltered near the hearth require less nocturnal fodder because they are warm. Keeping them close improves survival of valuable breeding stock, and the farmer gains quicker access to milk and meat processing. There are trade-offs. Odor, parasites, and disease risks increase when animals and people share shelter. Archaeological deposits sometimes show careful cleaning and removal practices, implying awareness of these downsides. In many places, architectural compromises evolved to balance benefits and risks. A partitioned stall within the longhouse, a slightly raised and curtained sleeping area opposed to an open animal pen, or design choices that kept animals at one end of the structure while people slept near the hearth. Beyond body heat, decomposition in straw and manure materials can add a surprising amount of warmth. Composting is an exothermic microbial process. When organic matter decomposes, microbes metabolize carbon and emit heat. In controlled heaps and packed straw, this heat can be captured. Ethnographic parallels from a variety of cold climate farming traditions show farmers using warm straw, partially decomposed bedding, or manure-packed niches as insulative materials or as localized warm spots for animals and, to a lesser extent, humans. In a building where straw is regularly turned and piled near sleeping benches, or where animal bedding is used as insulation in walls and floors, the microbial heat can contribute to a slightly warmer microenvironment. Archaeological layers composed of trampled straw and well-preserved dung in some turf houses hint that these materials were managed, not simply dumped, suggesting a practical knowledge of their secondary thermal benefits. It's important to stress the evidence is uneven and varies by region and period. In coastal, wealthier farms with larger buildings, there's clearer architectural provision for animal quarters adjacent to human spaces. In smaller inland holdings, separation was sometimes greater. Reconstructions and thermal models give us plausible scenarios, not universal rules. And they repeatedly return to the same lesson. People used every available source of warmth and tried to minimize heat loss. Where animals could be sheltered safely, they became part of the household's thermal economy. That integration, bodies, bedding, composting warmth, and architectural insulation, is the system-level thinking that turns a house into more than shelter. It's what archaeologists mean when they describe early farms as energy economies. Fuel in, heat retained, food transformed, and bodies kept functioning. The practice shows a pragmatic cost-benefit analysis. The value of an animal alive and producing milk or offspring outweighed the inconvenience of a smoky, slightly smelly barn shed. For modern survivalists, the takeaway is a reminder. Biological sources can supplement heat in emergencies, but hygiene and disease control are crucial. If animals must be kept near people in an emergency, partition well, manage bedding, and vent carefully. From living heat to moving warmth, skis weren't toys or mere sport. They were tools of survival. Archaeological finds of ski fragments and depictions in rock art, along with numerous later historical accounts, show that skiing and other forms of snow traversal were long established in Northern Europe. The basic principle is simple. Glide along a low-friction surface rather than plow through it. In practice, the Vikings and their contemporaries developed a range of ski forms suited to different tasks. Some designs were long and narrow for efficient travel over packed snow. Others showed a purposeful asymmetry. One longer, gliding ski paired with a shorter, kicking ski, a configuration that gives better traction during poling and on mixed terrain. A single pole, often used like a rudimentary brake or balance aid, also appears in many iconographic and ethnographic records. Why does that matter for warmth? Mobility reduces exposure and conserves energy. A hunter who can travel efficiently to a good stand of reindeer, who can deliver meat back without hours of exhausting post holes in deep snow, is less likely to suffer from prolonged cold exposure. Skiing allows longer range scouting and more predictable supply lines, both crucial in lean months. Experimental reconstructions comparing walking and skiing often show that, under the right conditions, skiing can be substantially more energy efficient for travel across snow, especially when trails are packed. That efficiency translates to heat saved and calories preserved for necessary work, rather than wasted on locomotion. Skiing also shapes social life. A community that can move across the landscape in winter maintains broader social networks. Shared hunts, exchange of goods between farms, and rapid communication. Those networks are resilience multipliers. A farm isolated by heavy snow is more vulnerable than one connected by ski tracks. The simple visual of a trail of skis in the snow is, in effect, the infrastructure of winter survival. And archaeology of trail networks and settlement patterns hints that such mobility mattered. Reconstructions show not only the tools, but the embodied skills required: balanced movement, knowledge of snowpack, and ability to read weather and route. These were learned practices passed in families and communities as essential as weaving or smithing. Ski technology was accompanied by other mobility aids: compact sledges, snowshoes in certain regions, and carrying techniques designed to minimize energy loss. The point is less to celebrate a single invention than to notice how transportation choices alter the whole survival equation. Being able to move, and move efficiently, keeps bodies working rather than shivering, and it makes supply and social support feasible. If we step back, what looks remarkable is not any one innovation, but the web of techniques that combined made life possible. Imagine the longhouse again, this time as a small, balanced ecosystem. In the outermost layer is seasonal design, turf and thatch that buffer temperature swings. Inside, the hearth is tended to provide a reliable core of warmth. Its stones absorb and release heat, evening out the daily cycle. People wear layered, moisture-managing clothing. They sleep on raised, curtained platforms piled with insulating straw and furs. They share beds or sleep near family members, maximizing body heat. Animals are sheltered where practical, lending their warmth and reducing nighttime losses. Bedding and decomposing organic matter are managed as insulative and exothermic resources. Daily life and seasonal customs, sauna sessions that dry clothing and bodies, coordinated communal work that keeps movement regular, food systems that prioritize calorie-dense fats, together produce a steady cadence of human energy. Mobility tools like skis enlarge the range of resources and reduce energetic cost of travel. Each element reduces risk. Together, they form redundancy and resilience. This systems view explains why some practices that look marginal in isolation make sense in context. Heated stones are modest in direct heat output, but used nightly under a stack of furs they raise the local sleeping microclimate. Communal sleeping seems intimate because it is. Social care and heat conservation were intertwined. Keeping animals inside aligns animal husbandry with heating, milk production, and security. The architecture preserves and recycles heat. Clothing and diet make the human machine more efficient. Reconstructions and energetics modeling indicate these are complementary strategies, not wild gambles. The sum is larger than its parts. There are caveats. The archaeological record is a patchwork. Climate, resources, and social organization varied widely across the Viking world. Turf houses in Iceland solved different problems than timber longhouses in Denmark. A coastal fishing community relied on different stores and mobility than an upland sheep farm. Experimental reconstructions can simulate particular configurations and give us credible ranges. For example, how many degrees interior temperature might rise under particular occupancies, or how long a heated stone will remain useful in bedding. But they don't produce a single universal Viking formula. Nor did every household adopt every technique. Choices were shaped by local ecology, wealth, and social networks. Richer farms could stockpile more fuel or build thicker walls. Poorer households relied more on communal support and mobility. That unevenness is informative. It teaches us that adaptability was central. Systems were tuned to place and season, and people shifted strategies as conditions changed. Archaeological layers sometimes reflect incremental adaptation across decades. Improved door construction one generation, thicker turf next, which suggests learning and responsive management rather than static tradition. What can modern viewers and survival-minded listeners draw from this ancient toolkit without turning history into nostalgic cosplay? A few practical, cautiously phrased takeaways translate well. First, The basics of layering are timeless. A dry base layer, trapped air through successive insulating layers, and protection for the head and extremities reduce heat loss more effectively than a single thick garment. Second, use thermal mass, where safe and possible. Stones, densely packed earth or water barrels heat slowly and release warmth over time. But handle hot stones with respect. They must be wrapped, placed on non-flammable surfaces, and never left where they could ignite bedding or cause burns. Third, conserve interior air by creating small enclosed sleeping spaces, a tarp or curtain, a narrow tent within a shelter, or a small bivvy reduces the volume you must heat and increases efficiency. Fourth, prioritize compact, energy-dense, warm meals in cold conditions. Small, frequent warm foods and calorie-rich items help maintain metabolism and comfort. Fifth, keep moving. Activity is a powerful, immediate heater and a preventative against the chill of stillness. Sixth, where safe and feasible, animals can supplement warmth in emergency situations, but be attentive to ventilation, disease control, and sanitation. And a final, cultural takeaway. Survival is social. The Vikings did not simply rely on individual toughness. They organized labor, shared sleeping arrangements, rotated duties like hearth maintenance, and embedded care for the vulnerable into sleeping order and domestic routine. Those social norms are as critical as any technology. In an emergency today, the social skills of cooperation, task rotation, and mutual support often make as much difference as gear. We must also be responsible in how we present these practices. Archaeological and experimental reconstructions give us reasoned confidence in many of the techniques discussed, but they are not recipes. Heating with stones in an enclosed space carries risks. Keeping animals close can create disease vectors. Intense contrast therapies have health effects that vary by individual. Where modern research is relevant, on the circulatory effects of steam bathing, on energy budgets and caloric needs in cold climates, on pathogen risks from close animal contact, I've framed it as supportive context rather than proof of universal practice. So what is the most unexpected lesson? It is the systemic nature of Viking warmth. They solved cold not with heroic displays, but with a set of coordinated pragmatic solutions. They engineered buildings to hold heat. They engineered clothing to manage moisture and trap air. They engineered daily life to produce and distribute metabolic energy. They used organic processes, animal heat, composting, as part of the energy balance. And they turned the landscape into a resource through mobility technologies like skis that made the winter world navigable rather than an insurmountable barrier. If one image were to sum it up, imagine a longhouse not as a static shelter, but as a small, managed ecosystem. A central hearth, pulsing heat like a battery. Layers of textiles and furs forming tunable insulation. Human and animal bodies as active heat generators. Skilled hands tending stones, stirring compost, mending roofs and turning straw. This was engineering with available materials. Low-tech but thoughtful, iterative and effective. Which of these 10 methods surprises you most? Would you try warming a sleeping bag with a wrapped hot stone in a controlled emergency? Or is the idea of keeping animals nearby too uncomfortable for modern sensibilities? If this exploration shifted how you picture life in the North, share it. Like and pass it along to someone who loves history or practical survival thinking. Tell us in the comments which technique you'd adapt today, and if there's a method you want us to explore in greater detail on the channel.